Hey you guys, Coach Z here. Thanks for joining me. This is going to be a series of videos that we're going to do. Some of them are going to be instructional videos on how to assemble your Tetra once you get it. Some of them are going to be on how to coach it once you already have it, once it's assembled. So what we're going to do first is we're going to show you guys how easy this thing actually is to assemble once you get it. So a lot of you are going to start getting your boxes this week and next week. So I don't want to be getting a lot of calls asking me how to assemble this darn thing. So it's super simple. All you have to do is follow the instructions that are actually in the bag. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our box. We're going to show you what components are in there, and then we're going to assemble it, and I'll show you exactly how to do it. All right. So box, 22 inches by 22 inches by 29 inches. It weighs 68 pounds. If you're not a healthy coach, make sure you get some help to move this box from your receiving department to the field where you're going to be able to assemble it. Or if you're one of them really big schools, just get the equipment manager to assemble it. It'll make it really, really simple because they probably have all the tools there. Anyways, what you'll see when you open your box is you're going to see 4 bags. Everything comes pre-assembled. All the bolts are assembled. They're carriage bolts, so they're going to stay in the hole, and the nuts are lock nuts. So you'll have to, if you have big strong hands like me, you're going to be able to take them off by hand. If not, you're going to have to use a wrench or a socket, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So you have 4 bags, and then you have a centerpiece. And I know I'm giving away some of our secrets right now because this is the technology behind the Tetra, is this centerpiece. All right. All you copycats, have a good look at this. All right. This is what makes the Tetra what it is. 1 centerpiece, 4 bags. You got to take out your bags, put them all on the ground. These are a little bit dirty because we've been using them a lot out here in our facility. This box, what you'll find is your instructions on how to assemble it. It's just a 1-page instruction because this is pretty simple. I don't even know why I'm doing this video, but I thought I better get it done. It'll show you what parts are actually part of this part of the box. All right, once you have that, all you need is the centerpiece and the 4 bags. All right, so once the Tetra pods or bags are out of the box, you've read the instruction, you'll have your centerpiece here, you're going to start assembling stuff. So you can either use a 13mm ratchet and socket, or you can actually use a wrench. I advise using a ratchet and a socket, or the closest thing to this is going to be a 1/2 inch in the standard American size. So a 1/2 inch or 13mm. Preferably to use a 13mm. If you have one of these handy dandy little, you'll have both metric and SAE, but it is a 13mm nut. Okay. So what we're going to do, just to start off, is we're going to take our centerpiece right here. We're going to remove our nuts, which goes pretty quick. And once our nuts are removed, because they're carriage bolts, they're going to stay in the hole. We're just going to put the centerpiece on in the center. All right. Once that's done, we're going to tighten our nuts. Now, we've timed this several times, and you should be able to get this done in a span of about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay. So once you've hand tightened enough the nuts, okay, you can go around and tighten each nut accordingly. Just make sure that the carriage bolts that are in here are actually, because they have a square head underneath them, make sure that the carriage bolts are all the way in. All right. This centerpiece for the Tetra, is all laser cut and laser welded, or machine welded. So everything fits absolutely perfectly when you get it. All right. And you shouldn't have any issues trying to assemble the different pieces.
Yep.
All right, now that we have 1 bag assembled, we're going to take the nuts off the second bag. And you could probably zoom in if you want, Brian, just to kind of show a little bit of what the bags look like. One of the things that we recommend if you go to our website, or if you go to and download our warranty information, so the Tetra is warranted for 1 year of any defects. Okay, so what you have to make sure is you have to make sure that all the nuts and bolts are on there when you get the Tetra. There is a spare set of nuts and bolts in the box itself, and we recommend that if you lose a nut or a bolt, for example, that you do not under any circumstances use spare nuts that you've purchased somewhere in the store, because that'll actually void the warranty. So if there's a nut missing, you got to make sure you let your Tetra representative know, and they will overnight you a brand new set of nuts and bolts, so that you're not using something that's not specified for the Tetra use. All right, there's a reason that these are the correct nuts that we use, because they're grade 10 nuts and bolts, and they're lock washers, so that nothing will ever come off or come apart. This is 4mm steel, so it's actually pretty thick stuff. We wanted to make sure that, especially for the American market, for the US market, that stuff was nice and sturdy, so that nothing would ever come apart, especially with some of those big old defensive linemen that are going to be using the bag. And you got to make sure, and I'm going to talk about this later, you got to make sure that once you tighten the bolts and you use it once, that after the first or initial use, you actually go and tighten the bolts again, and then you don't have to worry about it. So tighten it the initial time, the first time, and then you have to go back and tighten it again after the first use, which is pretty standard with any type of sporting equipment. The stuff kind of loosens up a little bit as you use it, so you got to make sure that everything's nice and tight. All right, so we have 2 bags assembled. Now we're going to assemble our third one, and as you add more bags, it's going to get a little bit tighter in workspace, you know, because like as the bolts, as the bags, everything's so close, you're going to have to make sure that you're lining everything up properly. If you have big fat fingers like I do, things become a little bit tight in here, so you're going to have to work around that. But we have 3 bags assembled right now, and as you will be able to see, the Tetra is coming alive, and it's starting to sit up on its own. Nice and tight. We don't want to over tighten and bust anything or strip anything, because as I was saying earlier, once you assemble it and you use it once, you're going to have to, after the initial use, you're going to have to tighten these bolts again. And you know what, 9 times out of 10, they still remain tight, but you never know. We don't want them to come loose, especially if you've got some bigger dudes using it. We certainly don't want anyone to wreck it. So they're nice and tight. All right. So last bag, I don't think we're more than 6 to 7 minutes. We're going to take off the nuts on the last bag. So this one becomes a little bit trickier, because you're going to have to kind of work upside down if you want. If you have enough help, you could probably flip it upside right side up. But what we're going to do is we're going to line up our bolts and our holes in our nuts just like this. Everything's lined up, and we're going to put our nuts on. So there goes one. There's 2. And there's my third one right here, which is on this side. All right, so I got my third nut on. We're gonna have to tighten stuff from underneath. Okay, bolt number 1's tightened. Bolt number 2 is tightened. And bolt number 3. There. Tetra fully assembled.